Howard the Duck from 1986, which is by George Lucas and someone named Willard Huyck. This was after Star Wars, obviously.
Yes, after, because it was 1986, right?
The seed for this idea was planted in George Lucas's head as he was making American Graffiti, and then somehow talked the people around him into participating in this abomination of a film. It's considered one of the worst films of all time, and it was like kind of like Simon Says, in the sense that it was like really highly funded and like obviously cost a lot, but was just really terrible. It was god awful. Let's boil this down to let's give the elevator pitch for Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck is a film about a duck from the planet Duckworld that is transported to Earth, becomes the manager for a band, and
falls in love,
kills a demon from another planet,
and falls in love. Strangely.
The suit, or I think it's like animatronic, but it's also a guy in a suit. Maybe the face is animatronic.
Yeah, because I think
this duck thing.
Bill is animatronic.
I mean, it probably cost a lot of money to make. It looked like
the costume itself wasn't bad. For 1986.
It was well made, but maybe I would say poorly designed. It looked like
it still ended up looking creepy, but it looked like it was well made. It just maybe not the best thought out design.
Kind of some of the shortfalls of those kinds of outfits like costumes where the face can only do so many like points of manipulation, so like the eyebrows and stuff don't look very believable, and there's not a really wide range of expressions. And it's kind of creepy.
The eyes look really creepy.
It's kind of like a marionette doll or something.
Yeah.
So Howard is from this planet called Duckworld.
Everything's identical to Earth except for it's ducks. Like there's movie posters that are ducks. This is Playduck, which is pretty funny and easy to spot that it's going to happen.
Everything in Duckworld, which is the name of the planet, that's not like a theme park or something called Duckworld. It is an entire planet called Duckworld. Is a complete analog to Earth, but with ducks instead of humans.
And they have like Budweiser and everything still, like beer. I don't know if it was exactly called Budweiser, but they have beer in glass bottles and everything.
Everything is named with duck or quack or whatever sort of like waterfowl related words in it. And it's just so weird because it's like play duck, play boy. Okay, that one makes sense. But like if everything in on Earth was named in the way that they name stuff on this planet, like if we called this human world, and like everything was called like, you know, instead of Budweiser it was called Bud Human Wiser. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's stupid. I mean, that's probably the least of the stupid things in this movie.
Yeah, that's probably the least part. So we're being nitpicky there.
Inexplicably, Howard, as he's about to masturbate to his
play duck, which throughout in the beginning of the movie, you see duck nipples,
and it's like human tits with duck feathers on them.
Like the ducks are they're kind of built like humans,
but midgets.
Yeah, so they're like midgets or little people, humans. But they're like little people ducks, and so they have the shape of a human body. When you see duck breasts,
it's unsettling.
Yeah, so they're these feathery boobs with nipples, and it's kind of creepy.
Here's what I think is one of the. If I were to say like what is, aside from obviously paying way too much to make this movie, one of the like biggest downfalls of this movie. This is based on a comic, and I don't know if the comic is geared towards kids or more adult, but the problem with this movie is it seems like they couldn't decide whether
it was a weird mix.
Was it supposed to be for adults or was it supposed to be for kids? Because honestly, what adult is going to want to see a movie about a humanoid duck that goes on adventures
that makes cheesy one-line jokes the entire time that are like at the level of a third grader?
Terrible, generic, like save the world, save the universe plotline. So all the elements seem like it should be a kid's movie. It's like anthropomorphic duck going on adventures. Everything's goofy and quirky. There's one-liners everywhere. Generic plot line, but it's in a really adult movie. There's tits in it. There's actually not a lot of cursing.
Yeah, and not a whole lot of cursing.
There's breasts. There's violence,
but there's not like any gore or anything.
That's why I feel like they made the movie with the intention of it being a kid movie, because they don't even say shit or fuck or anything.
Because and even like the violence is kind of like cartoony violence.
And then afterwards they're like, this is too edgy. Let's throw in some tits and make it an adult movie. I don't know what it was rated.
So it's like in a weird limbo of like, between kid and adult.
Too much adult stuff going on to be a kid movie, and too much kid stuff for adults to like it.
Yes.
And which is why I think it was a fail. It cost $36 million to make, and it just barely, across the world, barely grossed past that. I think there was like a $1 million net profit, which it's amazing there was any profit. But
it was terrible.
that's just like, by the skin of their teeth. It's pretty close. What's weird about this is, so he and his lazy boy are transported across, like, light years across the universe.
Inexplicably, all of a sudden they are pulled out of his apartment through walls and doors just crashing through.
Into space.
Sucked up into space.
Where he can scream and breathe.
He would die.
He doesn't freeze.
Yeah, he goes through their atmosphere and ends up in space.
It shows him
flying.
going past Saturn. It was Saturn.
Something like that.
He goes past Saturn. I mean, he's going across the universe, light years.
Yeah, he gets sucked out by the laser, but then at one point he's just floating. And
then he lands on Earth with nothing bracing his fall, and he clocks off the side of a building and goes through a patio roof.
It's like a sheet metal roof.
Yeah, it just crashes through it, lands in a trash can, and then he lands on his feet, doesn't he?
And he's just fine.
And he's
that would kill him.
Like he's slightly dazed.
And he sits like in a chair, and
he's outside of a punk rock show, and nobody. That's another gripe of this movie, is half the people in this movie don't care at all that this humanoid speaking duck is walking around wearing clothes and interacting. Half the people are not fazed by it, and then half the people are just disgusted and appalled by it.
Yeah.
But there's no it's not like they at first humans don't like him and then they warm up to him and accept him. It's like the punk rock show people not even fazed by the fact that he's a duck.
They just start like beating him up and
then
carrying him around.
And then he gets thrown in a dumpster or whatever, and he meets the singer of the punk band, and she's like terrified by him. But then 5 minutes later, after he saves her from being raped,
brings her home to his to her apartment.
That's another recurring theme in this movie is what's her name? Okay, yeah, I forgot to mention this. It stars Tim Robbins, Leah Thompson, who is the mom in Back to the Future when he goes back and his mom like kisses him and everything, and then Jeffrey Jones, who is the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And Leah Thompson, the recurring theme in this movie is her almost being raped by like 50 different people in different situations. The duck tries to have sex with her. These punk rock guys are like, "Oh, we liked you at the concert. Your band is so good, and like let's gang rape you." And then there's a demon that wants to have sex with her. What was the weird one when she gets? Oh, they're sitting in a diner just eating, and 3 guys in cowboy hats walk up and just were like ready to rape her. That's a totally normal thing.
So she's just always attracting this unwanted male attention, and that's pretty much all throughout the movie. But then she falls in love with Howard so fast. It's creepy. Like
she goes from being terrified and revolted to like checking his ass out.
Yeah,
they do a shot of his ass
and bringing him home to her apartment. And then at one point, they're in the same bed, and you think that there's going to be a duck sex scene, but he chickens out or ducks out, I guess.
Everything he says is some sort of pun or figure of speech
all
about something duck related.
All one-liners.
No more Mr. Nice Duck. No one laughs at a master of quack foo.
It's basically like Howard the Duck is like a Smurf, but instead of saying like, "Oh, I'm hungry, let's go Smurf some food," he's like everything is replaced with duck words and duck puns and stuff. It's really irritating. The plot of this is really weird. It's structured in a really weird way, and I'm all about like unconventional plot structures in a book or in film or whatever. But this one,
you're more than halfway through the movie before you find out why he's on Earth.
I wrote it down. It's a 2 hour, just under 2 hours. It's like an hour and 50 minutes. And at 1 hour and 5 minutes, over halfway into this movie, is when the hint of an antagonist first appears. There's a character that's introduced. Jeffrey Jones, the Ferris Bueller principal, is introduced like a third of the way into the movie. And he's a good guy, and it's not even hinted that he may be a bad guy until an hour and 5 minutes into this movie.
But when he's introduced, that's when it explains finally why Howard is on Earth.
Right.
Because some crazy laser that they shot into space sucked him back up to Earth, and that's why he's accidentally
The Ferris
on Earth.
Bueller principal was a scientist that was doing this laser. Not to mention, they said they shot this laser into space and accidentally hit his planet, and it warped him to Earth. There's so much about that is like grossly scientifically inaccurate. A laser traveling that far, somehow would have to be traveling.
It is a giant laser, though.
It would have to be traveling well beyond the speed of light. Somehow
Yeah.
it just pulled him, not the entire planet.
Yeah.
Somehow he traveled across light years of space in
somehow
about 10 seconds.
Somehow it pinpointed right into his apartment. So even when it pulls him through all those other apartments, I don't understand how it pinpointed on him specifically.
And it wasn't pulling other debris.
Yeah, and not pulling like the person in the last apartment he gets pulled through.
We can't debate the scientific merits of this though, because it's completely futile.
Yeah.
Because
it's a duck.
It's like an afterthought. They're like, people are probably going to be asking why this duck transported to Earth. We probably should, just say something about science, lasers. Nobody will understand it.
It's the 1980s. People think lasers can do anything.
And this is from the fucking guy that made Star Wars. I mean, from Star Wars and then American Graffiti to this, it's like, what in the fuck?
Well, we have to talk about the scientist Tim Robbins.
Okay, yeah, Tim Robbins.
He plays a crazy. Well, at first you think he's a scientist, but turns out he's just a lab assistant. And he's like really overacting and and just really cheesy about the whole thing. Like he's crazy. And at one point he's wearing like a fishing vest, which doesn't ever get explained. Like he just walks around wearing a fishing vest. But so he's like really crazy and wants to do all these tests on Howard. Because Beverly brings him.
Yeah, Leah Thompson brings Howard to this guy that's dating her bandmate and is supposed to be a scientist, and he's like hell bent on conducting tests on him and everything, but he's like a bumbling idiot. This is Tim Robbins.
Me, Phil, you, Howard, we be friends.
Ugh.
Yeah, so he wants to do all these tests, and Howard is pretty much a jerk throughout the whole movie.
Howard isn't... Okay, yeah. There's another core problem with this film. Let's jump back to that real quick. Howard is not likable. He's a womanizer. He's a kind of smarmy, like, snippy asshole to everybody.
He is, big time.
Leah Thompson, or Beverly, helps him out, like, hardcore, and gives him a house and, like, tries to fuck him and everything. And he, like, rejects her. He's just like a dick, and he tries to save her in the end and everything because it's to be expected. But it's like there's not really any reason for him.
He's just a jerk through the whole thing. So he gets offended by the scientist trying to do all these tests, which the scientist just wants to find out why he's there, or how he got there. All this blah blah blah. So he gets offended and decides, I'm going to go out on my own and get a job and find my own place to live.
Rejects Leah Thompson.
Yeah. So he decides that he's going to try and get a job on his own, which. Technically, he's an illegal alien, so he can't get like state assistance and stuff because he doesn't have any proof of citizenship. But he still tries to. Anyways, he gets placed at like a hot tub brothel. He gets placed there for work.
What is this in Ohio?
They're in Cleveland.
Yeah,
yes.
They're in Cleveland, and in Cleveland there's apparently just a straight up brothel where people fuck in hot tubs.
Yeah, I don't know if this was like some fantasy of George Lucas where. He wanted this to take off, so he's like, "Oh, we'll throw a hot tub brothel in the movie, and somebody will think it's a great idea and create one." But it's just like a hotel with rooms that have hot tubs and mud like baths.
And Howard's basically the towel boy.
Yeah, running through while these like half naked people are making out, and
he's got there's like it's only like 45 maybe 30 seconds of the film that he works at this place. It's like a montage.
Yeah,
almost.
It's just completely random.
And the boss is an asshole, and the boss throws him into a hot tub while people are having sex in it, and he like unplugs the hot tub.
Yeah, one of the jets or something like that.
And they keep having sex, and they don't even like turn to look at this fucking humanoid duck that's unclogging their hot tub.
And he pushes the boss into one of the mud baths at one point. And then just like quits right there and walks out.
And I like this part. I think it's right before or right after he goes to the job. There's a scene for no reason at all of him riding a bus. And he's surrounded by people on the bus.
Yeah.
But somehow when he gets up to get off at his stop, everybody is terrified of him all of a sudden. Like he appeared out of nowhere. Even though he's sitting in the middle of a fucking bus.
He's just sitting on the bus with all these people around him. But when he stands up to walk
they
off
scramble
the bus,
and freak out. And as he gets off the bus, some black dude leans out the window and goes, "That's a duck, man!"
That's a duck, man!
Just completely random. That it's like they're trying to play off like racism, but he was sitting there the entire time, and it's not like they freak out till he gets up to leave.
Here's another thing: is it's established that Duckworld is like a perfect analog to the human world.
Yeah.
You just switch ducks with humans. All the other history is the same. There's an Indiana Jones movie, but with a duck in it. There's Playduck magazine. Everything's the same, but with ducks. And yet, someone orders a pizza, or they have a pizza.
And he doesn't know what a
and
pizza
he goes,
is.
A pizza? What's a pizza?
Like even pictures that were on his walls of like the hippie movement and all that stuff. So,
yeah, on Duckworld there was a hippie era that was an anti-war thing. You can see all this on the walls of his room, but he doesn't know what a fucking pizza is, and he's always asking for beers. So
but
like
he knows what a beer is.
Duckworld and Human World are exactly the same, but pizza, that's the one thing that never got invented in Duckworld. The other thing that's really bothering me when I watched this was Tim Robbins' outfit for like the second half of the movie.
Yes.
It's never explained where he came from or where he was going to, or if this is just his fashion, but he's wearing a plaid flannel shirt with a vest, a fishing vest with like tack on it, and then a baseball hat. And he looks like he's a lumberjack that's going fishing and just got back from a baseball game, but he's supposed to be a scientist at the same time, and it's never explained, and he just kind of wears that for the second half of the movie.
Yeah, and at one point he's under arrest in the back of a cop car, and he's yelling about his rights and how he has his right to wear his Cubs baseball hat, which is something. It's another one of those stupid one-liners. But so yeah, they never explain his fashion and why he wears all this stuff.
Because up until that point, he just dressed like a scientist.
Even when he was like walking around town, he's dressed as a scientist in the white lab coat and everything.